Hello, everybody. Today, I'd like to talk about something a little bit different. I recently saw an article that read that the average homeowner is 40 years old when buying their first home. And in response to that, the President of the United States recently came up with an idea for a 50-year mortgage. And that to me is just insane. Because, for most people, they want to do their time as a typical adult and move on to the next thing, right? And it's hard to grow up when you're unable to move to the next phase as far as getting a first home. And most older adults that I know, they complain that these quote unquote adults, they're into Pokemon cards or online gaming, etc. And then I think to myself, well, you're making it so incredibly hard to move to the next phase that they're forced to kind of be kids. And what do you expect to happen? And I think to myself, in other countries, they don't promote the same kind of capitalism that they do here. For example, in Peru, if a home is not your primary home, there's a 5% capital gains on houses other than that. And I think that, that kind of stops these big gigantic companies from buying thousands and thousands of homes and then jacking up the rate, and then no one can afford it. Nobody can build up equity. It's like, what did you think would happen? And it's kind of reverse logic to me. And there's no way that first-time home buyers can compete against these companies like the banks, conglomerates, hedge funds buying these thousands of homes. It's just insane, And for most people that are younger, you're just starting out in life, so you don't have the money. You may have a first or second job where you're just kind of paying the bills or an internship, and there's no way they can compete. And even for most people, their starter home is not really a tax deduction. I hear that from these real estate and financial gurus. Oh, you can deduct the interest and so forth. But I mean, the interest. So the IRS basically says, okay, you can do one or the other. You can do either something called a standard deduction or itemized deduction. Now, a standard deduction is the IRS basically saying, okay, well, rather than have to keep track of different things, we'll just give you just a flat rate. Or if you're a little bit more savvy, you can take the itemized deduction. But of course, you have to keep track of it, right? So if you have like interest off of like a mortgage, or if you have like state interest, things like that, you can kind of keep track of it. I don't want to get too far into taxes, but that's kind of the basis of it. And for most people, you don't do that. So it's like, it's more beneficial just to take the standard deduction. So it's insane that they're doing this. But with that being said, I'd like to give you some tips because I know most people are, okay, well, here's the problem. How do you solve the problem? So I'm going to kind of go over that. So, of course, I am not a real estate professional, so I'm sure there's a gazillion things. What I'd recommend is work with a real estate professional. They live and breathe the industry, all day long. So they can give you tips and things you can do and, little things just to kind of get ahead. So they're actually here to help you. But I thought maybe I'd kind of give you just an outsider's perspective on doing so. So one of the things that a helpful tax tip is that you can take out up to $10,000 out of your IRA without the 10% early withdrawal for penalty for a first-time home buyer. Now, I mean, if you're married, that's times two, so it's 20,000. But you'll pay the capital gains, but still, like I said, put that money towards the house because that's for most people, a house is their biggest asset. So definitely, long term, it's definitely beneficial. Also, what I recommend for most people starting out is www.consumerfinance.gov. Let me say it again, consumerfinance.gov, www.consumerfinance.gov. What you can do, if you go there, and for most first-time home buyers, your credit score may not be the best. You're just starting out, and you have a ton of loan debt and of this and that, whatever else. So what you can do is if you go there, pull your credit report, and then dispute the negative items on your credit report. There's a process. It's going to ask the company name, what was involved, things like that. And then it'll say, send it off to the company. What'll happen a couple weeks later, you get a call back from the company, from the executive resolution department. And they're going to ask you, they're going to process, what was this debt, what was that, so forth. And they're going to ask you, what would you like done with this derogatory mark? You tell them, I wanted it taken off my credit. And they might use some coercion or some, like language to say, hey, we want to keep it on there, but tell them specifically, I want it taken off the credit report. This will help you out, and hopefully they'll take it off, or you may need to argue with them or whatever. But in the end, like I said, have it taken off. A lot of companies just don't feel like dealing with it. They don't feel like researching it. You're just a small drop in the bucket. And if that's the case, it's cheaper for them to just take it off. Lastly, ask for down payment assistance. Your realtor, they actually want to help you out. They're here to help you, because if you get at the house, then they get paid, right? And if you don't get the house, they don't get paid. Ask your mortgage person, real estate person, whatever person you have out there. And also what you can do is you can Google down payment assistance and put in your county, put in your state, put in your city, or at the federal level of the United States. And you can research it. I can tell you from experience, I've done these nonprofits, like I forget what some of them are, like the nonprofits that want to help you out. Those things are, and I know I'm going to get like criticism about this. I think they're a waste of time. They will have you go to meetings. They'll have you meet and greet and introduce yourself. Like, look, dude, just give me a mortgage and let's move on. So those things are just an absolute waste of time. But like I said, talk to your real estate person. They know the ins and outs. They live and breathe it. They want to help you out. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then also, for most people, I think their expectations, be realistic and understand your first home is not going to be your dream home. I understand, most of y'all will watch Housewives of Beverly Hills and think your first home needs to be $1 million home. It's not. It's going to be a piece of junk. It's going to be a piece of crap. It's going to be in a far-off place. Just understand that. And understand that your parents probably went through the same thing, or they got lucky or whatever. But, for most people, I can tell you, do a couple years, 3 to 5 years, get your equity or get your money back, your principal back that you put in there, and move on to the next thing. And your next home, or even your third home, will be your dream home. But you got to do your time. And, think of it like I'm just going through the motions here. You're just biding time. So, and then what I'd recommend is, and try an FHA loan. For most people, you may or may not have the money. And I can tell you, I've done working 2 or 3 jobs to get that down payment. And I can tell you, it's worth it. So I've been in my home for a little bit over 10 years now. And the first, when I had to work 2 or 3 jobs, it sucked. I was just straightforward. It sucked. And I was tired and I was exhausted. But I did my time. I got a reasonable down payment. And even for most of you out there, you may not have, like myself, I had a little bit of help, but, most people are not trust fund babies. Most people are not doctors. Most people don't have a lot of money. I get it. I've been there. But if you talk to your employer might be able to help you out as far as a down payment, or, get 2 or 3 jobs to do your time. And even the first year or two getting a house, you're still kind of getting caught up on things, and kind of, you're stressing out and so forth as far as with having to buy furniture and this and that, whatever else. But I can tell you, it's worth it. So do your time, move on to the next thing. So hopefully this helps as a non-real estate person to do the best you can. But definitely talk to people. Talk to anyone. Talk to your realtor. Talk to your mortgage person. Talk to your employer. Do your research. There are people out there to help you, but you got to ask, right? And now's the time to be humble, because once you're in, you're in. And just like I said, get a piece of junk house, do your time, and move on. But just a little bit about me. Myself and my partner, we have a bookkeeping business, over 15 years of experience in the industry, small and medium-sized businesses. We do businesses, but we also do individuals as well. But if you like us, you love us, and you want some more of us, click like and subscribe. Until next time.